is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
And we are back with another season of the Breakdown on City Sports Network. I'm Matt Hamilton, and if you'll notice, we got a new face on the show this year. Chase Daniel is joining the program to help me break down the Chiefs matchups every single week. We will dig into the film for you and really set the stage for each and every upcoming matchup. Chase, awesome to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm super excited. Obviously spent 3 years with the Chiefs, 13, 14, and 15, the first 3 years of Andy Reid's regime. So I'm honored to do this. And, obviously not a lot of people know, but we go way back. You were a student coach when I was a quarterback at Mizzou. So we've known each other for quite some time. And excited to break down some plays with you.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time in the film room together over the years. So it's all coming full circle, and I'm really excited to do this with you. But as for the Chiefs this season, the big storyline of the offseason is, did they do enough at wide receiver? Obviously, last year trading away Tyreek Hill, they managed that pretty well. But still, I think there was this feeling that, okay, you lose Juju Smith-Schuster. Are you going to add something else? Of course, they draft Rashee Rice in the second round. They have Kadarius Toney, who they traded for at the deadline last year. But I think there's that feeling that there's really no bona fide number one guy in this wide receiver group. Does that concern you at all?
Well, I mean, you look at what they did last year and what happened last year, right? Well, you mentioned it when they traded away the cheetah, Tyreek Hill, man. Like, this dude is a down the field threat. And what happened last year? Well, everyone got 60, 70, 80 catches. And that's what happened. And you look at the actual stats. I think Mahomes was 27th in the National Football League at throwing the ball down the field. It was more dink, dunks, Travis Kelce, get your running backs involved. So I'm not necessarily worried they don't have that other guy outside Juju Smith-Schuster. Everyone's seen what Justin Ross was able to do this preseason. I'm excited to see if he's going to get some play early, if Patrick Mahomes trusts him, because at the end of the day, it comes down to trust, right? If Patrick feels comfortable with the receivers that they have, then I think they're good. I mean, you got MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, really young guys, sort of unproven, made plays at the end of the year in the playoffs in big games. So that, to me, experience in that offense with, Andy Reid calling the shots, with Patrick Mahomes running the point, and then obviously Travis Kelce is going to get a lot of play, so it's going to give them a lot of one-on-one matchups. And then at running back, too, I think, the Chiefs were really high up there in throwing the ball to running backs and tight ends. So I don't know if necessarily the receivers need to have this great 300 or 400 catches between them. I just think they have to keep defenses honest.
Yeah, and as you mentioned with Kelce, he's your number one receiver right there, right? Like, I think even though he plays the tight end position, he's a go-to guy. He's a bona fide number one. And I am excited about what we see from Kadarius Toney this year as well. Obviously, injuries have been the biggest concerns throughout his career. He hasn't, even this preseason, we've seen it. He's had trouble staying on the field. When he's out there, you mentioned it, Mahomes with it was a lot of dinking and dunking last year. He's a guy that can turn, 3-yard completion or a bubble screen or anything into a touchdown at any given time. We saw how explosive he was in the Super Bowl, that punt return. So he's a guy I have high expectations for this year, and I think we could see a breakout season from him as well. But you mentioned, too, with the Chiefs offense, one of the other big storylines, even though we know, this is Andy Reid's system. Eric Bieniemy is obviously heavily involved, though. He's gone. He's now with the Commanders. A guy Chiefs fans know, but really, really well, in Matt Nagy, has taken over as the offensive coordinator. What are kind of his staples? What does he kind of hang his hat on? And what might be a little different this year, seeing Nagy more in the mix with the play calling and this offense?
That's a great point. I mean, I was with, Nagy actually. So 13, 14, and 15, the first year Andy got there, Matt Nagy was actually played a little bit for Philly the year previous as like a player coach when they needed somebody. They went down. It was the craziest story ever. We got to get him on here to talk about it because it's hilarious. And Andy sort of brought him in as like an offensive assistant, excited for what he could do. And then when Andy got the job in KC, They traded for Alex, brought Alex in, and then the next thing they did was, hey, get me in there. I was, played the previous 4 years in New Orleans. And when I walked in the door, it was the coolest thing ever because Matt Nagy had never coached a position in the National Football League. So to sort of see his rise, right, from quarterback coach for 3 years to co-offensive coordinator when Doug Peterson left to offensive coordinator to co with, EB and him, and then him leaving to get a National Football League job. I mean, there's one of 32 in the world for him to be able to do that. And oh, by the way, his first year in 2018, we went 12-4. He won the NFL Coach of the Year. So his resume speaks for himself. And I think for him personally, it was a really good reset to come back. Hey, it's somebody Patrick knows him. Obviously, Andy knows him. And I think what he brings is just a wealth of knowledge from different offenses. We sort of ran the exact same offense that he ran in, that we ran in KC. We did it in Chicago. And we had to tweak some things because quarterback play was different. But what I'm excited about here is just his work with RPOs. And the Chiefs still do a ton of RPOs. And I'm sort of not even liking to call them RPOs. I call them PROs, pass run option, because literally Andy and Matt are teaching it pass first if it's there, and then run second. And so he's going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the whole room. Obviously, he's going to be very involved in game planning with Andy. It's usually a very small room there that does the game planning. It's Andy, the OC, and the quarterback coach, right? So he's going to be back involved with that. So really looking forward to what he brings to the table there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up the Coach of the Year and all the good that he did in Chicago, because I do think it's kind of unfair, the connotation that's kind of been attached to his name because of how things kind of ended with Justin Fields. I do think a lot of what went on there and what went wrong in Chicago had to do more with personnel than it did with coaching. We saw the offensive line and that receiving core deteriorate year after year after year as he was there. And he's not really in control of that. So we'll see what Nagy is able to bring to this Chiefs offense. But as we look ahead to this week 1 matchup against the Lions secondary struggled a lot last year. They were the 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL. They have a lot of new faces there. But one thing that I don't think is going to change is the man coverage that they play. They played the second most man coverage in the NFL last year. That seemed to be a calling card of Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator. So I wanted to dig into the tape a little bit here, have you run through a couple plays of why it's just a really tough rest. You can play man coverage against these Chiefs. And go back to last year, we saw the Raiders have a little success with it initially on that Monday night game, and then the Chiefs eventually just turned to these man beaters and ripped them to shreds. So let's dig into the tape here, if we could pull it up, and Chase, just have you walk us through a couple of these plays.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. And I think that's exactly what Aaron Glenn's going to continue to do. He's going to continue to play man. And right here, you see they're in the tight red zone, right? They're at the 4-yard line right here. And you got Travis Kelce coming in motion. It's the first man zone tell, right? As soon as someone runs them, it's man. They're actually doubling Travis Kelce right here with Duron Harmon coming out of the field. And you can see right there, Juju Smith-Schuster coming inside, MVS going outside. And what that is it creates a separation for Kelce. If Kelce would have turned out, he's wide open. Okay, but he comes inside. It's a double pick. And honestly, Duron Harmon is in really, really good shape right here. All we call this is a little Y angle. It's very simple. MVS and Juju are literally there just to run interference. And they actually have it covered really well. The guy covering Travis runs to the flat where he thinks he's going to be. But when Travis breaks in, Duron's there. And I'm telling you, he's a foot away from being a pick six. And obviously everyone knows this is Travis's 4 touchdown game. This is one of his first.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful ball for Mahomes too. Just putting that, the ball placement, stopping him with the throw. Because if he runs him into Harmon, obviously it probably is either a pick six or Kelce's getting laid out. So tremendous feel for that from Mahomes and rifling that ball and putting that velocity on it as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, I really don't even think Mahomes sees him, Duron Harmon, to be honest with you. He's just throwing blind because, he's not super tall, and these guys, these offensive linemen are 6'5", 6'6", but, works out sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you can throw the ball with that type of zip on it. But yeah, so let's move on here to the second play, again in the red zone. And more special things out of Kelsey, as you mentioned, the 4-touchdown game. This was his 3rd touchdown of the day.
Yeah, I mean, everyone can tell here it's man. It's press across the board. And all you're going to have is you're going to have a bunch of crossers. He's got a little corner route by MVS there. If they did play inside leverage man or cover 0, he can drift and throw it to. And I think that's what makes Patrick Mahomes so special. Is he can really see defenses post-snap. And all you're going to have here is you're going to have Mecole Hardman come across. He's going to come and pick for Travis Kelce on the shallow route. And all it is, it's pretty easy. I mean, he just runs interference. You see right there. If Patrick can actually stay in the pocket here, I really think the ball goes to Mecole because he's taught at the quarterback position, Patrick is on this certain play, is, hey, see the safety in the middle of the field, go off the safety. So actually, the whole player runs with Kelce, runs interference right there, and he has Mecole up, but he gets pushed outside the pocket. And then here you see Travis here. I mean, there's 3 guys around him. I think this is number 3 or number 4 on the night for Travis. And it's unbelievable job of just, hey, it's what Patty Mahomes does, right? He makes plays out of pocket. That's why he's the magician that he is. And this is what Travis does so best. I mean, it's the run after catch. The rack is what we like to call it. Look at him throw that ball up in the air. I love it. But yeah, this, as you see here, there's run interference right here. And Deron Harmon actually comes out of the middle of the field spying Kelce, and they just get caught up.
And that's one of the tough things about playing man against this team too, right? It's the improvisation of Mahomes. You got to stick to these guys for such a long time once he gets out of the pocket. And you also have to worry about Mahomes' legs because, you know, a lot of time when you're playing man coverage, you can't really account for the quarterback unless you're spying him. So there's just a lot of headaches that come with playing man against this team. And even when it's not Kelce dicing you up, as we see on this last play here, even if you do everything you can to pay attention to Kelce, Mahomes is going to find ways to get the other guys in this offense involved. Here it's Mecole Hardman, who is no longer with the team, but as we talked about, there's still a lot of depth on this receiving core. What did you see here, Chase?
Yeah, I mean, 3rd and 15. I mean, the chances of them and the Chiefs getting this conversion are really low, like below 20%. If you're above 20% on the year in the NFL over 3rd and 15 plus, it's a really, really good year. And you have Farrell walked all the way down here over Travis Kelce. I mean, they're triple covering him almost. I mean, you can see like he is not getting the ball. So all that does is it takes away from other people and other receivers that are available. So Patrick drops back. He knows right away, hey, Travis Kelce's getting bumped and mushed around and just like thrown around. And I think personally, a drop 8, rush 3, exactly this defense that they're doing right here is absolutely not the best way that you want to play the Chiefs because all Patrick has to do is move up in the pocket, move around. He's not the fastest guy, but he's got some fast twitch. And you see here, you see the robber in the middle of the field. They're not playing 2-man. So the nickel back, when I first saw this, I was like, why is he playing outside leverage man? Well, it's exactly what they coached him to do. And all he's going to do here is just step up in the pocket. You see his vision above. There's no one on this left half of the field. It's an easy completion. I know he makes it look hard by going up and throwing across his body, but when you rush 3 people against him, I mean, that's easy for Patrick Mahomes right there.
Yeah, you know, he makes everything look difficult because of the arm angles, because of his throwing on the move. But yeah, I mean, that's something he's going to make that throw routinely, as we've seen time and time again. And as it pertains to the Lions, you know, we're showing Raiders footage here, but because of the man coverage. But as it pertains to the Lions, as I mentioned, a lot of new faces in that secondary. They bring in Emmanuel Mosley at corner from San Francisco. They bring in Cam Sutton at corner from Pittsburgh. But I think the biggest addition for them, and that's going to allow Aaron Glenn to do some different things, is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We saw him play a lot at safety last year for the Eagles. He played a lot of free safety in the Super Bowl. We saw him. He was basically patrolling that middle third of the field. But in New Orleans, where Aaron Glenn was his DB coach, he played in the nickel a ton, and he was as good as it gets from that nickel position. So how do you think adding in a guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson could kind of change the complexion of things as it pertains to this matchup with Kansas City?
Well, you can tell the first thing that Brad Holmes, the GM for the Lions, and Dan Campbell did, and Aaron Glenn, who's the DC, is in offseason, we have to fix the pass defense. We have to fix our defense. So what do they do? Go out, draft those guys, sign those guys. Sign probably, in my opinion, one of the best big-ticket nickel, safety, corner do-it-all type guys in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And I just think he brings, obviously everyone knows about the physical skills. If he actually goes back into the slot and plays nickel and is a disruptor, is a really good blitzer, is great in man coverage, I think that's probably where he gets the most bang for his buck. They're paying him $9-10 million a year, which is a really good, I mean, the top of the top nickel contract, right? And you saw him back then, last year was playing a little bit the deep thirds. Didn't love that about him. When he's in there rolling and just, hitting heads, dude, that's exactly what Dan Campbell wants. And that's exactly what Aaron Glenn wants. I don't think he's the best man cover guy. And I don't know if you can necessarily go into this Chiefs game, especially the first game of the year, and think, hey, I'm just going to play man coverage. Because I don't think that's the way to do it. I think you got exposed last year a little bit in the secondary. They turned it around the last 6, 7, 8 games of the year. Everyone knows the run they went on. But when you talk C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you have to talk about his physicality from the get-go.
Yeah, and we see that physicality turn into some chippy moments on the field over the years too. He just seems to always get underneath everybody's skin. So I'll be watching that to see if he gives some extra things to Travis Kelce and gets into it with him at all. Because we've seen Travis lose his temper a few times as well. But we've talked about Aaron Glenn. That's also somebody, you were with him for a couple of years in New Orleans when he was the DB's coach. He doesn't get talked to because everything. I mean, Dan Campbell is such a character. You were with him as well in New Orleans, and he gets so much of the attention. But what stood out to you from your time with Aaron Glenn in New Orleans?
Yeah, AG is like one of the best coaches I've ever been around, and he really teaches the game. But not only that, he really is just one of the guys. Like, he wants to know about your life outside of football. And when young players, especially NFL players, understand that, feel that you earn a level of respect, right? And so I think that's what AG has done, and I think that's why Dan Campbell brought him on for the job, because there's a respect level between players. And I think second year into the scheme, everyone in that building on defense is going to know exactly what to expect and what Aaron Glenn expects. So I think it's a great dude. I think he's a great person, but ultimately, I think he's just a really good mind. And I think, as you see a lot of times, second year in schemes, in coaches' schemes go a lot more smoother. And you could see even last year, you just draw a line right down the middle of the schedule. The first 8-9 games weren't great. The last 8-9 games were. And I think that hopefully they can start really fast this year.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the way that the Lions finished last season, that's the reason why a lot of people are picking them to win the NFC North this year. They were 4-7 at one point, finished 9-8, so 5-1 down the stretch of last season. They're coming in with a lot of momentum building from last year. And I also want to get your thoughts. I know the show, we look more at the Chiefs offense and the opposing defenses, but just your thoughts on Jared Goff and his growth last year. I thought, it was one of the best stories we had in this league, is everybody wrote him off after the trade from the Rams. A lot of it, his success was basically entirely attributed to Sean McVay, which wasn't fair. But I thought we saw a new side to him last season. What did you make of Jared Goff's progress?
Yeah, I think Jared gets a bad rap, to be completely honest with you, and that comes from maybe his first year in the offense with Dan Campbell. But I think Ben Johnson, what he's able to do, he runs a lot of what the Rams ran with him, and I think he's really good at the line of scrimmage. I think Jared Goff is really smart. I don't think I know, based on stats, that he's the top 5 passer in the league when it comes to play action. That's early down, first, second down. That's really what gets him to the rim. You see Jared Goff back there; he's not a holder. He didn't hold the ball. He didn't pat the ball. He didn't take a lot of sacks, and I think that's what Ben Johnson likes. Obviously, with Ben Johnson and the scheme that they have, he's very smart, right? It's new; not a lot of people knew what to expect of him. I think they're going to have a little bit of a trouble in the second half of this, but Ben Johnson's a genius, and I think Jared Goff knows this and likes this, is that they use shifts and motions more than anyone in the league last year. I think you're going to see a lot of that this year. I think you're going to see a lot of it the first game, and I think you're going to make Spags in that defense and Nick Bolton really make a lot of checks. And what Spags might do is say, hey, forget this blitz, and we're just going to sit there and cover 4, cover 2. I don't think you can run the ball on us. Let's cover these receivers, play shell coverage, which is what Spags does. But I'm looking forward to the matchup, and especially how Jared Goff progresses through the year.
And of course, if Chris Jones isn't out there on the field, that's going to play a big factor in this one as well. The other thing I'm interested to see, because the Chiefs don't have any tape on how they're going to use this guy, is Jahmyr Gibbs, the Lions' first-round pick. Because not only have we seen he's a great running back, but we're hearing that there are going to be a lot of different ways to use him. I think we're going to see him lining up in the slot. As you said, they do a lot of shifts, a lot of motion. I think we see him, he might be lining up all over the place. You might see some jet motion out of him. So that versatility is something, that's a little bit of an advantage that this Lions offense is going to have going into week one, is nobody's seen exactly how they're going to use Jahmyr Gibbs yet.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara. That's what I'm saying. Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, another guy well. Chase, this has been fun. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be here to kind of break down what happens in this week one game the next time you see us. And we'll preview week 2 as well. And we'll keep it rolling for the rest of the season. Chase, super excited to be doing this with you, to reconnect, and just keep tuning into Kansas City Sports Network. We'll break it down for you every single week.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having us.